Welcome back. Our coverage continues. Thank you very much for staying with us. So Iran is reportedly still reviewing an American proposal to end the war 26 days since the start of the joint U.S.-Israeli operation targeting the biggest sponsor of terror in the world, the Iranian regime. The United States submitting its 15-point plan overnight. It would include the abolishing of the current nuclear program and the abolishing of terror proxies and the funding of those terror networks. So far, the Iranian demands reportedly include recognition of what it describes as its natural legal right to control the Strait of Hormuz. So for more reaction and insight, it's now a pleasure to welcome Negar Mojtahedi, journalist at Iran International and host of the podcast series Eye for Iran, joining us now from Vancouver. Negar, thank you so much for being with us. We so appreciate your time. And as you well know, it is so difficult to verify reports coming out of Iran itself, blackouts too, plus military action. So to start, what insights can you share about reports of the execution of young athletes who were part of the anti-regime demonstrations back in January? What is confirmed? What are you learning?
And, thank you, first of all, Benita, for asking that question, because, amidst all the geopolitics, people are really starting to forget the massacre where tens of thousands of innocent Iranians were slaughtered on the streets across Iran. And now we have the execution, like you mentioned. What we know is that a 19-year-old wrestler, Saleh Mohammadi, he was a teenager, a national champion. He had dreams of becoming an Olympic athlete. He was hanged along with two other young men. Those two young men were not athletes, but they were Mehdi Qasemi and Saeed Dawoodi. And now we have another athlete, a boxer and coach, Mohammed Javad Wafai Sani. He is at risk of execution because he has been charged with crimes that are punishable by death. And of course, we cannot forget the case 2020 of Navid Afghari. He was a champion wrestler known around the world. And despite global outcry, he was also executed. And what was his crime? Protesting. And of course, all these individuals face kangaroo trials where they were wrongfully accused without any evidence of killing security officials. And there are a number of athletes who took part in the January 8th and 9th protests who have been detained by the Iranian regime.
Just so devastating to think. And as you say, the fact that there hasn't been a global outcry over these developments, it is just disturbing beyond. Negar, we've been talking here about, obviously, this deal, reports of a deal, dismissal of talks around a deal. What is your sense? Who is in charge in Iran right now? There's obviously no sight of this new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, since his selection. Now there are reports around a possible role for the parliament speaker, Mohammad Khalibaf, but the regime ideology remains either way. What are you learning? Who is making the decisions right now about these talks?
Great question, because if you ask the Iranian regime, they wouldn't be able to give you an answer with a straight face because they themselves don't even know who's in charge. Now, unfortunately, one of the legacies of Khamenei Sr., shall we call him, is that he was able to successfully decentralize power to the point where, if you kill one of them, eliminate one of them, behind the curtain is another one. And so what we're starting to see is this apparent shift that had took place during Khamenei Sr.'s reign, which is where the power really went from the clerics to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, to the IRGC. So as an entity, as a whole, the IRGC is very much control of the country in every way possible.
When we look at the developments on the ground right now and the moves coming out of the United States, obviously, as you well know, one of the Islamic Republic's most strategic assets is Kharg Island, the heart of Iran's oil exports and its military logistics as well. Talk us through the significance of this island amidst the reports that the U.S. could use ground forces to possibly take the island. What is your sense? Talk us through the ramifications if, in fact, that does happen.
Well, I've been hearing through the DC circle that is indeed a possibility, and this would really suffocate the Iranian regime. Kharg Island, as President Trump called it, is the crown jewel of Iran because, most of Iran's oil exports, I mean, this is an important artery for Iran's oil exports. About 90% of Iran's crude oil goes through Kharg Island. But it's not just that. The oil terminal itself can transfer about 7 million barrels of crude oil a day, and it has the capacity to store about 8 to 9 large vessels. So losing Kharg Island would mean that, I mean, that's their lifeline. And if they're not able to have funds, how can they fund their proxy terror networks? How can they fund the IRGC and the Basij to be these repressive tools to kill innocent Iranians? So I think that if we get to the stage where he can somehow occupy Kharg Island, we would really be seeing the end of this regime. And then maybe the conditions would come into place where Iranian people would be able to finally rise up, because right now it's not safe.
Which brings me to my next question. If the war does come to an end in the coming days, where does this leave the Iranian people who have been hoping and waiting for regime change? What actually happens on the ground after all these military strikes?
Well, there would be another war, and it would be a war that the Islamic Republic is waging against its own people. You know, when I show images to people of January 8th and 9th, they think that it's the current war taking place. And I'm saying to them, no, this is what the regime does to its own people. So they are going to get revenge. They are going to take it out on the people of Iran. And it's like leaving a beast that is half wounded. You can't do that. That would be abandoning the Iranian people. I should say that right now, people inside Iran, their biggest fear from those that we've spoken to is that this war would end too quickly without an end to the Iranian regime. So they're more fearful of the war actually ending than for it to continue at this point.
We so appreciate your time, and there are so many questions that remain and so many different scenarios that could be unfolding. Nagar Mojtahedi, live from Vancouver, thank you so much for being with us on this Breaking News edition. And now, still in studio, Major General in the Reserves, Eitan Dangat, and our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osaran. And Ariel, I want to come to you about this exact dilemma for the people of Iran right now, watching everything unfolding just like we are, but there is so much at stake for them about what the future looks like and what could unfold.
Benita, let's take many steps back to remember how we got here. As far as Israel is concerned, it engaged in this operation because of an imminent threat of increased production rate of ballistic missiles, that Iran had already produced 1,000 ballistic missiles following the 12-day war in June, and were on pace for producing 8,000 new ballistic missiles by the end of the year, which would have caused significant devastation across Israel, what we're not seeing right now. Why did the U.S. launch this operation? President Trump said he was getting involved in order to save the Iranian people, saying that help is on the way. What are we talking about now? We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. No one is talking about the Iranian people. In fact, the Iranian people weren't included in the 15 points that the Trump administration relayed on to the Iranian side. And so even if the war doesn't end now and does end with, you know, the best case scenario for Israel and the Trump administration, which are the 15 points, that does not address the issue of the change of the regime and the ongoing repression of the Iranian people. So I completely understand their apprehension. I also understand the apprehension of Gulf states for the war ending at this current situation, but we're not talking about that right now. And so if I were an Iranian right now with a limited knowledge of what is going on because of the ongoing internet shutdown, I would be very concerned about the current state of affairs, that not only are neither of the sides that are attacking Iran talking about the Iranian people, but the current status of the Iranian regime is more radicalized, more emboldened, and strategically in a much better position, ironically, than they were even before this war began.
Very briefly, your response.
Just what I agreed with these things, but we have to understand that in their state of mind is what had happened before the war. More than 30,000 people has been murdered in the streets in a very cruel way. And this thing has been like a shadow over the activity. Secondly, I don't see any foreign country which will enter to a country and create change of the entity. It's a process. It will take time. It will take time to observe, to understand what's going here. And it's better now, and I think it was too high expectations that during the war it's going. Such country like Iran is not changing entity in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. So it's better to achieve the goals that were at the beginning, what especially concerned the nuclear and Hormuz, as we just said before. But on the other end, I don't see these people sitting in their homes and watching. Probably there is such kind of preparations, find a leader, talking outside. This can take later, after also looking how the new situation in Iran will be established by the present entity.
So many questions still remain, as we were saying with Nagar. We know what the regime does in terms of a brutal crackdown to protesters on the streets. It comes at an enormous risk, as we have seen in January of this year. Gentlemen, stay with us as we turn once again to that ongoing threat out of Lebanon. Hezbollah rocket and drone fire continuing, day 26 of the war. And right now, for a first-hand account, we welcome Liat Cohen-Raviv, a resident of Metula in northern Israel. Liat, thank you so much for being with us. Talk to us about your experience there. We know about the regular rocket and drone attacks by Hezbollah. Describe what it's like living there in Metula, so close to that border.
Let's talk about today. I think today was a new record for Hezbollah. I think we were counting for the first time because it was too much. Like around noon, you were like, isn't it too much for one day? And then it continued, I think, about over 200 rockets only today. And when you say near the border, so just to make sure that everybody understands, Metula is about 100 meters from the next village, Lebanese village in southern Lebanon, because we are the northest community in Israel, and we are surrounded by border with Lebanon at 72% of our fence. Well, basically the fence of the community is the border with Lebanon. So it's a little bit unique and complex and important and meaningful and, you know, loved.
Well, it is quite extraordinary to hear you describing it as being meaningful, because to be up there is at such an enormous risk. And when we speak to people living so close to the border, they all say they're not going anywhere. Give us a sense of how long you have to get to a shelter when you do get to hear these drones and these rockets overhead.
Well, around this, in the communities that are very close to the fence, to the border, we have about 140 kilometers of a border with Lebanon on this side. And we have about 21 communities that are fence communities, 0 time. Most of the times it's a bomb falling, and then you're like, oh, it's happening. And then you need to run. So there is no alarm. I think it's very hard to grasp and to understand. But, you know, when you think about how the map is just, you know, structured and so on, and the distances, unfortunately, it makes sense. If you're a little bit further away, you can have about 15 seconds. That is true for Kiryat Shmona and the communities on that line. But for us, it's a little bit more challenging. Therefore, even now, I'm talking to you with very close proximity, like to my safe room and house.
So in terms of people evacuating, the understanding was that people were told to stay and not to leave their homes. Some people have to make decisions, decide on their children, elderly, how they want to let things unfold. What is your sense in terms of the community? How many people have stayed? How many people are looking to try and make an alternative plan, at least for now?
Well, you know that this round is a little bit more challenging because it comes after a year and a half, almost 2 years for some people of evacuation. And 2 years being displaced is challenging. It affects, you know, your life and your household and your choices and the DNA of the family in so many ways. So when that ended a year ago, about 80%, give or take, it depends who you're asking, came back. So we already were short 20%, right? Currently, we have a situation where, you have people who came back with a little bit more resilience, with the understanding of being evacuated, what does that mean, and what are the prices and ramifications of that, and very much awarely choose not to be in that place again. I think that's on one hand, and the other hand, in order to balance that, because it is a sacrifice in some sense, is knowing that maybe this time something will be different. Maybe the end results will bring quiet to the region, which we are, wishing for a very long time. And we're paying a price now for a better future. So if you put those two things together, and the very difficult memory of being displaced for a year and a half, choosing from a value base and from understanding that this is a national mission and so on to come back, and also hoping that this time it will be different.
Well, extraordinary strength and faith. And as you say, finding meaning in being there at this incredibly difficult time. We so appreciate you speaking to us and wish you strength there. All the best. Stay safe. Liat Kohen Raviv, thank you for speaking to us live from Metula in northern Israel. Look after yourself. Be well.
Thank you.
Incredible faith. Emunah, we call it here, just believing in the meaning of staying there and believing that in the long run it will all work out for the best. Ariel Oseran, senior Middle East correspondent, developments across that front as we speak. What is the latest?
Benita, unbelievable resilience that those people living on the northern border community that have been going through so much for so long, and really, they just having to put up with this while giving the IDF the room to work, to operate, to ensure their safety and security in the long run is really remarkable and commendable. As for what is going on right now in Lebanon, there's strikes in southern Lebanon, Israeli strikes, but very interesting development in the town of Antelias, which is east of Beirut, where Lebanese army intelligence have surrounded a building after receiving information of the presence of a senior Iranian official, because we know that now in Lebanon, the IRGC, they have been outlawed. And so after surrounding the building, Lebanese armed forces entered the structure and removed the Iranian official from the site. Now, he hasn't been named, his rank hasn't been identified, but this is one more step in a series of steps that we've seen the Lebanese government take over the past week that really shows new rejuvenation of their zeal to really go after Hezbollah, to go after the IRGC, after the Iranian influence, and after expelling the Iranian ambassador, now taking active steps, security steps on the ground to remove any presence of Iranian officials. The moment we know the identity of this individual, the senior official, obviously we'll bring this, but I think this is a very interesting and encouraging development coming out of Lebanon. Another indication that the Lebanese government has had enough with the IRGC destroying Lebanon, and they're taking active steps to try and rebuild their nation without the negative Iranian influence.
Your take? Just
connecting to what Ariel is informed now, I may say this is the maximum for now that Lebanon can make. And this is something new. As they send the message to the Iranian ambassador to leave, now what we heard now, it means in a local place, in individuals, you see active that Lebanese government or president are ordering to make them in order to create atmosphere that who is the entity in this country. They are not able to make such a thing towards Hezbollah on disarm, but this is something we have to understand, then bring us the change. On the other hand, I want to make a few words concerning the Israeli, of course, population in the north. From my experience for many years in the IDF, crossing the border to Lebanon, entering back, defending, these people is something that you cannot even describe their heart, their feelings towards the places, towards the land, towards the country. But it's not a policy for the long term, Benita. It's for the short time. it's good, but we cannot continue in such a way without activity of the Israeli government to supply them the tools to stay there. The people that has no shelters, the people that needs elder people, etc., supporting also by finance help or support. This thing, it's a great failure by the Israeli government, not now, but for many years.
Certainly the most resilience of communities, and as you say, they need all the support and help that they can get, and that will be something that many will focus on, especially in the coming election. So now we turn to the question over the repeated Iranian attack on Gulf nations throughout this war, their infrastructure and civilian sites too. The United Nations Human Rights Council has today backed a resolution by Gulf states and Jordan condemning Iran's attacks on regional countries after their diplomats told the body they faced an existential threat from Tehran's strikes. The 47-member council adopted by consensus a motion brought by, wait for it, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates and Jordan, decrying Iran's unprovoked and deliberate attacks, calling on Tehran to immediately stop and demanding full and swift reparations for victims. The United Arab Emirates ambassador Jamal Jama al-Musharraf said Iran was trying to destabilize the international order through reckless adventures of expansionism. Senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Oseran, extraordinary statements there from these Gulf nations against Iran. Break it down for us.
Yeah, this really we're seeing that Gulf states have had enough. Now they're still sticking to rhetoric, but now they're also trying to use diplomatic steps. Now this evening, the UAE's ambassador to Washington, Olotaiba, he wrote a very powerful op-ed in the Wall Street Journal saying that a ceasefire now that won't cut it. There needs to be serious actions curbing the threats from Iran. This includes conclusive steps on Iran's nuclear program, the missile program, the drones, as well as their proxies and threatening maritime passageways. Now, this saying that anything short of that will simply be kicking the can down the line. Now, the past 3.5 weeks have shown what they in the Gulf have known for the past 50 years or 47 years, that the Islamic Republic is a danger not only to the region, but to the entire world. Now, that is what we're hearing from the UAE that has really become the most vocal element in the Gulf. But let's look at what happened yesterday. Bahrain brought forth to the UN Security Council a draft resolution that would allow taking all necessary steps, all necessary means to protect commercial shipping in and around the Strait of Hormuz. This draft proposal is supported by the United States as well as Gulf countries, but the West is pushing back. France said that this is warning that adopting such a resolution not only would be difficult diplomatically in terms of the number of countries who would vote in favor of it, but would only make the situation worse. This is what the French foreign minister said just yesterday. Our message is clearly not to go any further. So what we're seeing here is that the current response from the international community, excluding the United States, obviously, reflects a strategy of containment rather than decisive intervention. And for Gulf states, that might not be enough. And so right now they're trying to play by the rules. They're trying to stick to rhetoric, trying to maintain a united front, and also use the United States, the United Nations and its various organs in order to stop Iran's unprovoked and unlawful attacks against them. That does not seem to be bearing any fruit as of now. And so the Gulf states may find themselves in a situation where they have no alternative but military means in order to stop Iran's attacks. They have not resorted to that yet, but the absence of any credible action on the part of the international community may force their hand.
Parting thoughts, 30 seconds on that.
the Gulf countries are in a stage of waking call. The last chance for them, and they understand it for the day after. Europe is sleeping, closing the eyes, even it's a daylight. In their yards, there is already proxies from the Iranian area. And Iran already showed its capacity to launcher to 4,000 kilometers. So my advice to Europe, please wake up. It's a daily time. And please behave as a countries with all your tradition and not be frightened to be on the front.
Closing their eyes, even in the daylight, that comes with enormous risks, as is clearly evident. Major General in the Reserves, Eitan Dangot, thank you very much for being with us. Ariel Oseran, you're staying with us through the break. Right now, we're taking a very short break, but when we get back, we bring you fresh updates from the White House. We speak to an Iranian human rights activist, and we take a deeper look at security warnings for Jewish communities around the world. Stay tuned.
Secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait. Just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-919-8734.
Tired of the hassle and high costs of selling a home? We can help. At Ideal Agent, we'll connect you with a top local agent that'll sell your home fast for top dollar, and all this for as low as a 2% commission.
We got the top dollar for our house and the lowest commission that I could have imagined. The house sold in 2 days. It was so exciting for us.
Ideal Agent is available nationwide. There's no obligation, and best of all, our service is completely free. Call today or visit idealagent.com.
Do you suffer in pain? Are you stiff, tense, or less active than before? Introducing the EasyWell Remedy Massage System that combines the incredible effects of vibrational therapy, targeted deep tissue shiatsu massage, plus soothing infrared heat. A triple fusion of therapeutic experiences. Full body vibrational therapy increases blood circulation and reduces inflammation. Look at these beads moving from the powerful vibrational motors.
It's like 1,000 little fingers just vibrating my body from head to toe.
Infrared heat penetrates deep to reduce pain, soothe, and relax.
Remedy gets in there and helps deal with the source of the pain, so you feel much better.
The Ultra Shiatsu pillow with 6 infrared heated nodes mimics a professional massage. Plus, it's detachable for deep relief anywhere you need it.
It's just something that you're gonna have to feel for yourself.
Experience the true remedy for your pain and stiffness. Call now.
My name is Eli Sharabi, and I lost my wife, Lian, and my 2 daughters, Noya and Dehel, on October 7th.
491 days in captivity. When Eli Sharabi learned his wife, Leanne, and their daughters were murdered, he made a vow to turn his pain into hope. Now, Shalva is opening the Sharabi Center in Ashkelon, providing vital care for PTSD and disabilities in their memory. Eli survived to keep this promise. We need you to help us build it. Don't stand idly by. Donate today at www.shalva.org/Sharabi.
And I believe my wife and daughters would be proud to see their names connected to a place that brings healing to others.
In moments of challenge, strength comes from standing together. Israel Bonds launched an international campaign to rally global support for Israel following Operations Epic Fury and Roaring Lion, sending a clear and powerful message that now is the time to stand strong with Israel. Make your statement. Invest now at israelbonds.com. Scan the QR code to invest in Israel today.
Welcome back to this breaking news edition. I'm Benita Levine, live in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much for staying with us. The Islamic Republic of Iran says it's still reviewing an American proposal to end the war. The United States submitted its 15-point plan overnight. So far, the Iranian demands reportedly include recognition of what it describes as its natural legal right to control the Strait of Hormuz. Joe Brown takes a deeper look in this report.
Another war, another Trump-pointed plan that he hopes will end it. Mediators Pakistan have confirmed that Washington has submitted a proposal to end the war with Iran and has given Tehran 24 hours to respond. Nothing has been confirmed, but Israeli media has reported an outline of the proposal. First of all, according to the agreement, Iran will have to give up major concessions for their nuclear program, including abolishing its current program, vowing to never pursue nuclear weapons, outlawing the enrichment of uranium in Iran, surrendering its current enriched uranium stockpile to the International Atomic Energy Agency, allowing the IAEA full access in Iran, and the dismantling of the nuclear sites in Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow. Furthermore, the proposal deals with Iran's proxies in the region, such as Hezbollah and the Houthis. Iran must abolish its proxy program and cease funding for its proxies in return for peace. In terms of their missile program, they will only be allowed in use for self-defense, and they will be limited in terms of range and power, the details of which will be finalized during the negotiations. The US is also asking for the Strait of Hormuz to be reopened. In return, the US will help the Iranians in their civilian nuclear program, including energy generation. They will remove sanctions and abolish the snapback sanctions mechanism, which allows the UN to implement more sanctions if they do not comply. But it seems like the proposal is a non-starter, with an Iranian official telling state-linked media Press TV that the proposal is, quote, excessive, and that they will continue their attacks on Israel and Gulf countries. According to the official, the 5 conditions to which Iran would end the war are a halt to, quote, aggressions and assassinations, concrete mechanisms to stop the war resuming, a halt to the war on all fronts, including Iran and Lebanon, reparations for war damage to Iran, and Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. However, another Iranian official told Reuters that although it was viewed less than favorably, they are still studying the proposal. Washington is hoping that a peace summit can be arranged this week, and a month-long ceasefire has been floated whilst negotiations are taking place in a bid to entice Tehran to the table. But with Israel reluctant to end the war in its current state, and the Iranians unlikely to give in to the American demands, this 15-point plan is in jeopardy before the first point has been formally announced.
So for the latest, let's go back to the White House. We cross live to our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. He joins us once again for fresh updates. So many questions about this 15-point proposal from the United States, reports around a potential meeting in Pakistan in the coming days. At the same time, the Iranian foreign minister says there are no talks at all. So what is the latest there? What are you learning?
The Iranian foreign minister is not only saying there's no talks planned, the Iranians are saying that there can't be any talks planned until several things happen, including an end to what they say is American aggression and assassinations. They want reparations for damage during the war. That ain't coming anytime soon. So basically they're saying, yeah, I don't think so. At the same time, they say they're still reviewing the proposal. So mixed messaging somewhat from the Iranians, but they're certainly, unsurprisingly, taking a hard line when it comes to this particular issue. Meanwhile, on the American side, Caroline Leavitt, White House spokesperson, briefed the media earlier today. She says talks on this issue have been productive, but refused to clarify who those talks have been with, if they've been direct talks. We know the Pakistanis are involved in sending messages, at least that's what the American side is saying. Other countries have raised their hands, say we'll serve as a broker, we'll do what we can do to mediate. Egypt, Oman, Turkey, and others. Still no clarity on who is on the receiving end of those messages in Iran, and if they are even in any sort of position of power to potentially move forward with talks about having some talks.
It certainly is one way of laying it all out. We wait to see if those meetings in Pakistan actually do happen. Meanwhile, is there any update on the deployment of around 1,000 soldiers with the Army's 82nd Airborne Division said to be preparing to deploy to the Middle East in the coming days? What are you learning? What is the latest there?
No confirmation yet from the Department of Defense here, but multiple credible reports say that deployment is moving forward, that there's already been a deployment of an advanced team, a command team from the 82nd Airborne, which is specializes in paratrooper assaults. They're the ones that come in on these secret missions, quick takeovers, boots on the ground, swiftly taking over and carrying out very deadly missions if need be. This is a serious division that they're planning on sending in there. Why? Well, number one, of course, it sends a message to the Iranians that America means business, even though they're still willing to open up the door here for talks, or maybe even eager to open up the door for talks. On the second front, in order to lay the groundwork for what would be the next potential military operation, which could be a takeover of Kharg Island or something similar, you need these types of soldiers there on the battlefront and ready to go, and can't have them sitting back at their headquarters in the U.S. or elsewhere around the world. So getting things in place, both diplomatically and militarily, and if one doesn't work, as we've seen time and time again, President Trump is not hesitant to pull the trigger, no pun intended, on the other one.
And while he does have much on his plate right now, certainly in the U.S. and in the Middle East, he is going to be going to China. The latest suggestion is that he'll be there in the middle of May. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's what Caroline Levitt revealed today, May 14th, 15th, the mid-May area. This meeting was supposed to happen, but obviously with the Iran conflict, everything, kind of gets pushed to the side here. Of course, China is tied in very tightly with Iran. They coordinate, their allies. There's been much talk within Washington, the concern that China is coordinating with Iran in the war here against the United States. Of course, the oil money flowing from Beijing to Tehran, keeping what little economy Iran has afloat at this point. But it's critical for the U.S. economy, U.S. trade, U.S. relations with that part of the world. I think President Trump, after a long battle with China, realizes that even if you're not friends, there's got to be some level of cooperation there. And so he's making the trip and has already invited President Xi to make a reciprocal trip to the White House somewhere down the line.
Live from the White House, thank you so much, as always, Senior U.S. Correspondent Mike Weckenheim. Thank you, Mike. And now for more, it's a pleasure to welcome Michael Mulroy, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, joining us from Montana. Thank you so much for your time. What a time in the United States. What a time in the Middle East. Conflicting reports around details in this 15-point plan and the demands the Iranian regime is reportedly making, including wanting control of the Strait of Hormuz. What is your sense of the likelihood of a deal that ends this war right now? What can you tell us?
So, Benita, it might be that both sides are just having a maximalist position, because it's pretty clear that neither side are going to agree to much of what the other side is saying that their proposal is. And that is hopefully not going to be the end of it. It usually isn't. Negotiations involve compromises, or they tend not to work. So I guess the first thing to find out whether this is going to end diplomatically soon is whether they all show up in Pakistan or wherever they're intending to host this get-together, these negotiations. Once there, I would hope that both sides are ready to accept certain concessions and drop some of their own. If not, it's clear, as you just went over, that those are going to be completely unacceptable. And some of the things, of course, it's not really up for the United States to decide to give an international waterway, for example, over to the sovereignty of a country. Even if we would, and I don't think we ever would agree to that, it's generally not up to the United States to do something like that.
Michael, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the United States and Israel have temporarily taken 2 Iranian officials off their target list. Those 2 officials are the foreign minister and the parliament speaker. What does that tell you as everyone tries to speculate over who is talking to the Americans right now?
Well, the speculation prior to that is that's exactly who we thought we were talking to. So Arachi and the speaker were exactly the 2 people that we thought was who the administration was talking to. I think this is confirmation of that fact. They are the 2 most senior that we think would be speaking for the regime. Both are hardline IRGC members. I think both went back to the Iran-Iraq war, so they're veterans. They will be, I think, very hardline, but they also have the authority, if you will, to actually speak for the regime. And that's absolutely imperative, because just talking to somebody who might be more compliant to the United States but couldn't bind the actual regime would be a total waste of time.
When it comes to trusting the regime and any potential leader, whoever might be representing Iran, if these talks actually do happen in Pakistan, we're talking about a regime that chants death to America or death to Israel. So it's quite a big ask to trust if you live in this part of the world. But perhaps those who may have been more open to believing the Iranian regime have now seen firsthand, just in recent days, how it lies about its missile range, for example. Were you surprised that Iran could target Diego Garcia around 4,000 kilometers from Iran? What was your reaction?
So my reaction is much like you just described. It seems like we were a little behind on their, at least range, maybe not their capabilities. Obviously, it didn't strike anything. But it'd be really interesting to hear a laydown by the intelligence community to see exactly what we think their capabilities are when it comes to long-range ballistic missiles, and what advancements we think they're going to make, and how quickly it will take to get there. Of course, the Israeli-U.S. strikes on their facilities have significantly, I think, degraded their ability to do this, and not only the current stock of ballistic missiles, but also their ability to manufacture that. And that's one goal of this campaign that I think is successful. The military objectives of depreciating their capacity on that front, I think, has been likely met. But that is why I think the U.S. is going, and Israel, of course, is going to push for whatever agreement this is that ends this, for a serious restriction on their ballistic missile program. Because ultimately, that program can protect any nuclear ambition they might want to try to get to. And one of the big concerns now is that the remaining part of the regime was actually the part that really pushed for Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. It was, in fact, the supreme leader who, by many estimations, was against it. Obviously, he was a threat. He destabilized the region, but was ultimately against Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. But they are gone. And a lot of people believe that what remains are the part of the regime that always pushed for Iran to quickly try to get to a nuclear weapon that was deliverable.
And Michael, very briefly, the U.S. is said to be deploying around 1,000 soldiers with the Army's 82nd Airborne Division. They're said to be preparing to deploy to the Middle East in the coming days. Much speculation over boots on the ground, much speculation over Kharg Island. Your take?
So yes, this is the immediate response force from the 82nd Airborne Division. The first 1,000 is probably a battalion reinforced. It could quickly go up to 3,000. That would be the entire brigade that is on the IRF. And that could be there relatively quickly, essentially by the end of March. They would be joined, of course, by the 2 Marine Expeditionary Units. They could do things like take Kharg Island, but there's significant indications from reports today that the Iranians are preparing for that. If they could also take islands around the Strait of Hormuz itself to be able to control that, at least militarily, or they could be taking part in a potential JSOC operation, so the U.S. Most Elite Special Operation Force, to go in and basically take the highly enriched uranium, which we believe Iran still has. That would be a major undertaking. It would, as you just said, be boots on the ground, which would be politically significant in the United States. There's many people in Congress right now, Republicans, that would then vote to end the funding for this war if the U.S. inserted troops onto the ground. The question would be, this would be a limited insertion for a limited amount of time. Would that constitute the same? But it is clear that this would cause a big shift and a large escalation of this war, and we'll have to see how Congress reacts.
We always appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for your time. Michael Monroy, live on Breaking News Edition. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Benita.
And now for more, it's a pleasure to welcome Goldie Gamari, human rights activist, speaking to us now live from Toronto. Goldie, thank you so much for your time. Day 26 of this war, the Iranian regime keeps launching missiles at Israel. People in this region here, all too aware of the existential threat the regime poses. What can you tell us, though, about the sentiment on the ground inside Iran right now? What is the latest you are learning?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Big fan of your show. So the sentiment on the ground inside occupied Iran is one of hope, but also a little bit of fear. And the fear that people in occupied Iran have right now is that the United States and Israel will not finish the job. And by finish the job, I mean getting rid of the Islamic regime. The people in occupied Iran are grateful that the United States and Israel are coming to liberate them, because we do see this as a liberation after 47 years of Islamic occupation. And so the message that I'm getting from people inside occupied Iran is that they're grateful to President Trump, they're grateful to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the message that they have is finish the job, destroy the Islamic regime.
We were talking earlier on in the show about the blackouts inside Iran, making it very difficult to confirm or verify reports. And then we've been hearing the devastating and disturbing updates about the planned execution of young athletes who were part of the anti-regime demonstrations in January. So hard to verify what is happening. First of all, what can you share about those developments, and what does that mean for protesters or demonstrators who want to take to the streets right now, knowing what kind of brutal crackdown the regime could be conducting yet again?
So with respect to news coming out of occupied Iran, the reason that we are getting some footage and some videos is thanks to Elon Musk and smuggling Starlink devices into occupied Iran. So you're absolutely correct. The country is currently in an internet blackout. The Islamic regime has shut down the internet, effectively silencing the voice of 90 million Iranians. However, thanks to Elon Musk and Starlink, we are able to get a little bit of information. And that's where our news comes from, because, you know, we as Iranians, we don't trust the Islamic regime media. We don't trust Islamic regime state TV. All they do is lie. It's all propaganda. We only trust our citizen journalists. And that's how we get real verified news. So that's how, you know, we're getting some of the info to come out. I apologize. I forgot the second part of your question.
We were talking about the planned execution of young people who had taken part in the anti-regime demonstrations in January.
Of course. So that's absolutely horrific. But this just goes to show the Islamic regime is more afraid of the Iranian people than they are of the United States and Israel. The Islamic regime does not have the capability or strength to stand up to the United States and Israel, as we can see from the way that they have been completely devastated. The only thing that they can stand up to is the Iranian people, unarmed, innocent Iranians. And so the fact that they executed a number of, innocent young Iranians back on Friday is basically to demoralize the Iranian people. And we're actually seeing footage coming out today where the Islamic regime Basij, which is the equivalent of modern day Gestapo, the Basij are going around and they're actually shooting into people's balconies. So even though Iranians are staying inside right now, they're chanting in the balconies, death to the Islamic regime. They're also chanting King Reza Pahlavi, which is, of course, acknowledgement that the only leader that we trust and support is His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince of Iran. They're being shot at. With respect to why Iranians haven't come out to the streets yet, there's a very simple reason for that. The United States, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, CENTCOM, and of course, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince of Iran, King Reza Pahlavi, have all said that now is not the time to come out. Iranians must stay inside. They must remain indoors because the military operation is still continuing. It's very dangerous right now for Iranians to come out. But what I can guarantee you is that as soon as the call is made by His Royal Highness, King Reza Pahlavi, Iranians will come out into the streets, and they will come out in even bigger numbers than what we saw back in January.
We so appreciate your time and your insights and shedding some light on what is happening inside Iran. So important right now. Goldie Gamari, human rights activist, live from Toronto. Thank you very much for being with us on this Breaking News edition.
Thank you so much for having me.
Incredibly courageous voices indeed. And now, the latest update from CENTCOM on Operation Epic Fury. Let's take a listen.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, Commander of U.S. Central Command, here with my 5th update on Operation Epic Fury. We're in the 4th week of the campaign and remain on plan or ahead of plan in achieving very clear military objectives for eliminating Iran's ability to project power in meaningful ways outside its borders. U.S. forces have struck more than 10,000 military targets. In fact, we hit the 10,000th Iranian target just hours ago. And if you combine what we've accomplished with the success of our Israeli ally, together we have struck thousands more, clearly demonstrating that we're stronger together. Our precision strikes have overwhelmed Iranian air defenses, and our combat flights over Iran are having tangible effects. Here are a few examples. For decades, Iranian warships have roamed regional waters, threatening and harassing global shipping. But those days are over because we've now destroyed 92% of the Iranian Navy's largest vessels. They are not sailing, and my operational assessment is that they've now lost the ability to meaningfully project naval power and influence around the region and around the world. As we've highlighted previously, Iran's drone and missile launch rates are down by more than 90%, meaning their ability to attack American forces and regional neighbors is drastically reduced. And not only have we significantly degraded Iran's naval, drone, and missile capabilities, we've also removed the regime's ability to rebuild them. Before Operation Epic Fury, Iran had large-scale manufacturing capacities to not only build naval vessels, missiles, and attack drones, but also to advance and proliferate these technologies to regional and global bad actors. Today, we've damaged or destroyed over 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards, and we're not done yet. We are on a path to completely eliminate Iran's wider military manufacturing apparatus, which is why my operational assessment continues to be Iran's combat capability is declining as U.S. combat capability continues to increase. U.S. forces maintain air superiority over Iran's skies, having now flown over 10,000 combat flights. As I mentioned in my last update, refueling tankers are extending our reach, and fighters and bombers are delivering precise strikes against our primary objectives. Let me highlight our B-52 bomber force, which is executing a high volume of strikes into Iran and demonstrating our unmatched dominance in the air. Now in their 8th decade of flight, our B-52 bombers are executing strikes into Iran with up to 70,000 pounds of munitions on each mission. Our B-52 pilots and aircrew embody the courage and resilience of the more than 50,000 American sons and daughters serving in uniform during this operation. There is no adversary too determined, no mission too difficult, and no task too great for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen. I just could not be prouder of our troops, and I know the American people share that same pride. Thanks so much. Godspeed.
And that update from CENTCOM on Operation Epic Fury. Senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Ursaran, certainly sounding upbeat indeed.
10,000 military targets, 92% of the Navy pretty much destroyed. I think the biggest headline is that the regime is no longer able, at this point in time, to rebuild its naval drone and missile capabilities. This is important when you're talking about the threat over the Strait of Hormuz, that they don't have a navy and they don't have the ability to produce additional drones and missiles that would threaten ships passing through the strait. However, he did not say how much of their current stockpile was, he did say that 2/3 of the production facilities have been destroyed and they cannot rebuild, but no mention of what they currently have. And that is the big concern here, because yes, the Strait of Hormuz is not closed. It is simply controlled by Iran, and they can decide to launch whatever they want, whenever they want, at any vessel traveling through. And so removing their production capability. That is a goal that has been brought forth also by Israel and also by the United States, that they won't be able to produce additional threats. But they've been stockpiling these capabilities for so many years that the threat is very credible and in the immediate time frame. So this shows that the multifaceted degradation of Iran's capabilities has been partially successful, but ultimately the goal for the United States, at least when trying to ensure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, is making sure that their current capabilities are also taken away.
Senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Osaran, thank you so much for that breakdown. Stay with us. Right now, we're taking a very quick break, but when we get back, we take a deeper look at security warnings for Jewish communities around the world over the upcoming Passover festival, which starts on the 1st of April. That's a week from now. Our coverage continues. Stay tuned. Back in just 2 minutes.
Call 800-919-8734.
Do you suffer in pain? Are you stiff, tense, or less active than before? Introducing the EasyWell Remedy Massage System that combines the incredible effects of vibrational therapy, targeted deep tissue shiatsu massage, plus soothing infrared heat. A triple fusion of therapeutic experiences. Full body vibrational therapy increases blood circulation and reduces inflammation. Look at these beads moving from the powerful vibrational motors.
It's like 1,000 little fingers just vibrating my body from head to toe.
Infrared heat penetrates deep to reduce pain, soothe, and relax.
Remedy gets in there and helps deal with the source of the pain, so you feel much better.
The Ultra Shiatsu pillow with 6 infrared heated nodes mimics a professional massage. Plus, it's detachable for deep relief anywhere you need it.
It's just something that you're gonna have to feel for yourself.
Experience the true remedy for your pain and stiffness. Call now.
Are high interest rates keeping you from selling your home? We have a way to get you more money for your home while saving thousands in commissions. At Ideal Agent, we'll connect you with a top local agent who will sell your home fast, for top dollar, and all this for as low as a 2% commission.
We paid a 2% commission, which I don't think we would have had with any other agent, and we got top dollar for our house, and we are just so happy about it, and the results were fantastic.
Ideal Agent connected me with the top 1% agent in my market, and I actually got it at a discount, and I saved about $12,500, which is unheard of when you're working with the top producer in any industry.
We've helped tens of thousands of home sellers get 5-star results with top-performing experts you can trust. We guarantee it. Ideal Agent is available nationwide, there's no obligation, and best of all, our service is completely free. Call today or visit idealagent.com.
My name is Eli Sharabi, and I lost my wife, Lian, and my 2 daughters, Noya and Dehel, on October 7th.
491 days in captivity. When Eli Sharabi learned his wife, Leanne, and their daughters were murdered, he made a vow to turn his pain into hope. Now, Shalva is opening the Sharabi Center in Ashkelon, providing vital care for PTSD and disabilities in their memory. Eli survived to keep this promise. We need you to help us build it. Don't stand idly by. Donate today at www.shalva.org/Sharabi.
And I believe my wife and daughters would be proud to see their names connected to a place that brings healing to others.
Welcome back to this breaking news edition. Our coverage continues. Now, it's not the messaging Jewish communities would want to be hearing ahead of the Passover festival, which starts a week from now, the week-long festival starting on the 1st of April. That's Wednesday. So Israel is warning that Iran will expand terror attempts against Israelis and Jews overseas for the Passover festival. Travelers are advised to avoid large events or events that don't have proper security, especially those tied to celebrations for the festival, and to remain alert in areas associated with Jewish or Israeli communities. The Israeli National Security Council is issuing a warning of a significant rise in terrorist threats targeting Israelis abroad, citing the ongoing conflict with Iran and the upcoming spring holiday season. It cited locations including Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and Gulf states due to elevated risk levels due to their location. Increased caution is also recommended for travel in parts of Asia, particularly Thailand and the Philippines. So for more reaction and insight, it's a pleasure to welcome David Katz, the CEO of the Global Security Group and a former U.S. federal agent, joining us now from Texas. Thank you so much for your time. As you well know, Passover festival time is a time for family, for celebrations. Many in Israel certainly like to travel at that time. Schools are on vacation. What do you make of this global warning for Jewish communities and travelers abroad right now? Your thoughts?
Remember when the biggest thing you had to worry about before Passover was cleaning the crumbs out of the bread thing?
Oh, we remember those days, yes.
Fondly. So anytime anyone says something like, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm anti-Israel, you just ask them, why is it then that anytime there's some issue involving Israel, it doesn't matter whether the person is for it or against it. It's not even a question. If someone is wearing a kippah, if someone is obviously Jewish, is speaking Hebrew, they are attacked. So it is completely the Jewish people, irrespective of being a member of the Israeli government or working in an Israeli office. So unfortunately, every Jewish institution, at least I can tell you, at least in the U.S., is on high alert. My own shul, for example, we take it very seriously. We train, we have volunteers, and a good portion of our energy is focused on providing protection for the congregation rather than focus on the upcoming very beautiful festival that we should be celebrating happily, but we're not, unfortunately.
There are many communities around the world who have their own localized community security for that very reason, but that can't be the case in many places. What kind of advice do you give to people? Families want to go to the synagogue. Families want to eat together. It's about being with your loved ones at this time. What kind of advice are you sharing right now?
You're exactly right. And in the U.S. is a perfect example. What you can do in Texas, as far as having a security committee and having those members armed and trained, you can't do in places like New York or Massachusetts. So that's number one. Depending on where you live, it's going to dictate what you can do. At the very least, make sure we have security conversations with our fellow congregants, with our families. Make sure that we're taking security seriously. If we can't provide it internally as a member of a volunteer force, we're going to have to unfortunately spend money, and we're going to have to hire people. Liaison with your local police department. If they can't provide an ongoing presence, which some departments can, some can't, then make sure that they at least give you special attention. Understand that, that we're having a festival tonight, we're having a community Seder tonight, and at least pay more attention, drive by us more frequently. If you have to write tickets or do paperwork, please do it from our parking lot, for example. So those are conversations, unfortunately, that are being had with Jewish communities all over the U.S., and I hope over the rest of the world. And again, it's sad, but it's completely necessary. Let's focus on keeping our loved ones safe while we enjoy the celebration.
It certainly is sad to be having this discussion around a time that is about celebration. And of course, when it comes to travel, many cautions right now, not only about specific places around the world, but just a heightened vigilance for travelers. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, take a look at where you're going. Every country has a corollary to this, but if you are a U.S. citizen, take a visit to the U.S. State Department website. Look at the country that you're going to or considering going to and get an idea of what security conditions exist. And they will be also very specific with respect to issues of anti-Semitism and the ability of the local authorities to actually to create a level of safety that's acceptable. And here's something that people need to get through their heads. Don't go to dangerous places. If you want to go to Turkey, do it when this knucklehead is out of power. If you want to go to places like Thailand, make sure you're not going to places like the southern part of Thailand. Make sure you're going to areas that are not likely to be affected by Muslim extremism. So just common sense stuff. Travel safely and travel to safe places.
David Katz, we so appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And this time next week, wishing you a Chag Sameach. Thank you very much for being with us on this Breaking News edition. Be well.
Be well.
Now we turn back to our ongoing coverage, and our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osseran, is tracking developments across the region as we speak. And we were talking earlier on in the show about strikes in parts of Iran. What update can you share?
So the city of Mashhad, Iran's second largest city in the northeastern tip, has received the heaviest bombardment in the past couple of hours. Several strikes across the city, including in the area of Mashhad Airport. Air defense activity was also seen in the skies over Taiba. That's even more east. I said they can't go more east than Mashhad. Well, they have gone more east, really on the border with Afghanistan. Air defense activity there, including explosions reported in Shiraz, which is in the southwest of the country. So we have the southwest, northeast in a massive country like Iran. This shows that really air superiority of Israel and the United States has been maintained, and that they're continuing to strike regime targets across the country.
We've been talking earlier on in the show, obviously, about the threats that exist as well out of southern Lebanon, all too clear on this day yet again. And we also know the Israeli government is authorizing a draft of up to 400,000 reservists. Obviously, it's the festival time, as we were discussing. Obviously, a lot of the reservists have done several rounds since the 7th of October. Fatigue has set in for many, but give us a sense of what this tells us, the plans in place down the line.
Yeah, these troops are mainly intended for Hezbollah. Once the war with Iran winds down or ends abruptly, as is possible according to recent reports, the focus of the IDF is going to shift towards Hezbollah. Right now, so much of the Air Force focus, intelligence, real-time intelligence, operations divisions, they're focused on maximizing the success in Iran. And the window of opportunity is limited there. But that is not the case with Hezbollah, which is currently, I won't say in the back burner, but it is not the priority number one. Once Iran is closed, then Hezbollah will become priority number one. And for Israel, the goal is no longer degrading the capabilities, but really this appears when you are approving a draft of 400,000 troops, there's one purpose, and that is finishing the job. And when you have the evacuation orders towards not just north of the Litani River, but north of the Zaharani River, which is pretty much double the territory that is south of the Litani, this indicates that Israel is intending not only to go after the second line of Hezbollah's offensive capabilities, but also to potentially extend the buffer zone that it has established in southern Lebanon, really to maximize the security that it's providing to the northern border communities in order to prevent their need to be evacuated. Now, that's with Israel. If we're looking at the other side, that is the Lebanese government, let's just take a look at the steps that they've taken over the past week. The Lebanese government has outlawed the IRGC. They have expelled the Iranian ambassador. And they have removed an Iranian official from a residential area east of Beirut. That's what we reported earlier this evening. There is additional Lebanese reporting that, citing a military source, that is not true. We'll have to simply wait and see until there is official confirmation on the part of the Lebanese government. But this shows that Beirut has, on the one hand, had enough with Iran ruining Lebanon, but also this is pretty much the maximum that the Lebanese government can do at this point in time, because they cannot go around southern Lebanon dismantling Hezbollah's remaining infrastructure because the IDF is there and is evacuating everyone. This does show that the ball for any diplomatic engagement with Lebanon is in Israel's court. Not so sure how, it's not clear at this point how long this window of opportunity is open, but at least if we're looking at the steps from the past week, which are long overdue, even admitted by the Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, saying we are years overdue in disarming Hezbollah. The steps of the past week definitely show seriousness on the part of Beirut. The question is Jerusalem seeing this, and how does it intend to reciprocate on its part?
So many questions remain right now, tracking all those developments as they happen. Thank you so much, Senior Middle East Correspondent Ariel Osaran. Thanks, Ariel.
Thanks.
Now, turning our attention to the Caspian Sea, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that recent Israeli airstrikes off the Iranian coast targeted a key shipping route used by Iran and Russia for the exporting and importing of weapons, including those used by Moscow in its war on Ukraine. One of the key aims of the port strikes was reportedly to limit Russia's weapons smuggling abilities. Although Israel has not publicly acknowledged this, the Israeli Air Force last Wednesday carried out a wave of airstrikes against Iranian Navy vessels at the port city of Bandar Anzali on the coast of the Caspian Sea. The IDF saying those strikes destroyed an Iranian Navy corvette, 4 missile boats, and several auxiliary ships and guard boats, along with a command center and a shipyard. So for more reaction and insight, it's a pleasure to welcome John Hardy, Director of the Russia Program at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, is joining us from Atlanta. Thank you so much for your time. So the IDF saying at the time of that strike, it targeted the missile boats to cause a blow to the Iranian military. The Wall Street Journal is saying that sting was also felt by Russia, which has its own port on the Caspian Sea, miles from Iran. So what is your take, your assessment? What happened?
So in the past, the Iranians have used that port to send drones, some of the same drones that Iran is now firing at U.S. bases and its Gulf allies around the region to Russia. Since 2023, though, the Russians have been producing modified versions of those drones themselves and actually in much greater numbers. I think if you read between the lines of that Wall Street Journal report, perhaps there's some Israeli concern about weapons going the other way, that is from Russia to Iran. We know that reportedly the Russians have been providing intelligence and drone employment advice to the Iranians. Maybe there's a concern in Jerusalem that the Russians are providing drone components, other weapons to the Iranians.
It certainly would be a concern, as you say, amidst those reports about Russia sharing intelligence with the Iranians. If Russia is watching these joint operations against Iranian regime targets, the U.S. and Israeli strikes, now it's day 26, given the current uncertainty across the region, the uncertainty around the Strait of Hormuz, how does Russia benefit from all these developments unfolding as we speak?
Right. So I think in general, Russia is on the sidelines of this conflict. Yes, it has provided some support to Iran. It's not decisive, though. Even if Russia were to be smuggling weapons to Iran, again, it would not be decisive. That said, Russia does benefit in some ways from this conflict. The increased price of oil is a windfall for the Russian budget, which was in a severe deficit. So that kind of eats away at the budget the deficit to some degree. The war has also taken U.S. pressure, attention, and resources away from the conflict in Ukraine, which is, of course, Putin's top priority. Peace talks have been stalled since the war in the Middle East broke out, and we'll see if they're able to resume here in the foreseeable future.
And John, we've been talking throughout our broadcast about the big question around a possible end to this war, possible talks hosted by Pakistan between the US and potentially an Iranian team as well. Your sense of the likelihood of this coming to a close realistically in the coming days, your thoughts?
Well, just from my perspective, it does not seem like the Iranians are interested in negotiating. They seem to be of the opinion they can wait out President Trump. So to me, the most likely scenario is this war ends whenever President Trump decides that it's time to end it and declare victory. Who knows exactly when that will be? I think that advisors in the Pentagon, if they're smart, are probably saying a couple more weeks are needed to really finish the job in terms of degrading Iran's military capabilities. If Trump wants to take it beyond that to try to achieve other goals, maybe forcing some sort of nuclear resolution, et cetera, that might be a bit tougher, given that Tehran seems to think, they don't see any reason to do that.
Certainly so many different scenarios that could be playing out. We wait to see how it all unfolds in the coming days. John Hardy, Director of the Russia Program at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, live from Atlanta. Thank you so much, as always. Now to another development. 7 Iraqi soldiers have been killed and 13 others wounded in an airstrike on a site belonging to Iraq's Shiite Popular Mobilization Forces near an army medical center in western Anbar. The ministry saying the strike hit a military clinic and a nearby engineering unit. Officials condemning the strike as a blatant and serious violation of international laws and norms prohibiting attacks on medical facilities. It described it as a dangerous escalation, adding it reserves the right to respond in accordance with legal frameworks. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani has instructed the Foreign Ministry to summon the U.S. envoy in Baghdad over attacks that targeted its military units. So for more reaction, it's a pleasure to welcome Hamid al-Sharifi, the former Iraqi diplomat, joining us from London right now. Thank you so much for your time. So many developments across the Middle East. The Iraqi ministry slamming this airstrike as a dangerous escalation. Your assessment of what unfolded here, your thoughts?
Well, thank you for having me. And, Iraq has been occupied for the past 23 years by Iran. We have militias, we have pro-Iran proxies, they controlling the scene of Iraq. So who is hitting who, who's killing who, who's fighting who? No one can exactly say accurately, give you an answer for that. Well, America, of course, hitting some targets, but also there's some assassination, some bombing, carnage is happening in Iraq. We don't really know. Of course, in the interest of Iran, they need to create a chaos in Iraq because this is another front for them. As they're hitting the Gulf area, as they're hitting Israel, as they try to international, to really widen this war, to make it not only regional, but international.
Authorities there are saying they reserve the right to respond in accordance with legal frameworks. What do you understand that kind of response to look like realistically?
Yeah, this is like a green light to continue. Just defend yourself, because there's no government as such in Iraq. The government is a puppet of Iran. So whatever they tell the government to say, they will say it. And now this is like a green light, as I say, to the militias. So anybody has a green light to defend themselves. Against whom, we don't know. So it's in the next coming days, we're going to see a lot of these surprises going to unfold in Iraq. So like the militias going to, there's many unfinished business between the militias. Although they are, all of them belong to Iran, but still they have some differences between them. So they are killing each other, they're bombing each other, they're shouting at each other. So, yeah, we're seeing a lot of this. But soon, I think we're going to get rid of it, and we're going to have fully Iraqi government in Iraq to prosper the country.
How do you see that happening realistically? What do you envisage needs to happen for that moment to happen for Iraq after all this time?
Well, 23 years of occupation, Iranian occupation. So the people of Iraq are really looking forward to see that day of liberation. So this war, it's a hope for them. Although they cannot say, because they've been watched by the Iranian intelligence and Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Iraq, but they get in touch with us, a lot of them. They express their happiness to see this government or the entire regime of Iraq will be finished, replaced by new proper Iraqi government to rule them to the good future.
Well, there is a sense of change coming to many parts of the Middle East. We wait to see how it all unfolds. Hamid al-Sharifi, former Iraqi diplomat, joining us live from London. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now back to studio and our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osaran. So I want to circle back, Ariel, to the start of our broadcast when we were discussing this 15-point plan by the United States. Donald Trump has been speaking about it. The details are not entirely clear or confirmed. And talks around a meeting potentially in Pakistan in the coming days with some kind of Iranian leadership. At the same time, just at the start of the show, we heard from the foreign minister of Iran saying there are no talks at all. Realistically, how do you see things unfolding in the coming days?
Well, it is very possible that this is just Iranian posturing outwards, and this will lead to some sort of talks down the line. These talks are not going to be easy, and they potentially will not be short. But ultimately, this is a moment of truth. We are 48 hours, there's 48 hours remaining to, or 3 days remaining to President Trump's extension of the ultimatum. And so we'll have to see what happens in those 3 days. That doesn't leave a lot of time for significant breakthroughs, but there is that possibility. Now, an interesting development reported in the past few hours is that Iran has told mediators that any ceasefire with the U.S. and Israel must include also stopping strikes on Hezbollah, an Iranian attempt to link the end of the war to the end of Israel's offensive in Lebanon. Now, this is reporting by Reuters, citing numerous regional sources. This is a no-go for Israel. And it is, if it all falls on this, then there won't be a ceasefire in Iran. We just talked a few minutes ago about approving the draft of 400,000 IDF soldiers in order to finish the job against Hezbollah. Israel identified this opening of a window that Hezbollah provided it by attacking it. And so Israel doesn't want to allow Hezbollah to simply regroup and use this time to rebuild its capabilities, in contrast to its new defense doctrine that no more allowing the enemy to rebuild and regroup. So that is another challenge to a potential breakthrough in reaching talks between Washington and Tehran. And also the Gulf states are saying they do not want to see a ceasefire that doesn't address the full range of Iranian threats. So we're seeing many voices of significant stakeholders in this conflict that are saying that if the war ends right now in these current conditions, that is not good for them. Israel is saying this, the Gulf states are saying this, and so it will be very interesting to see if these allies of the United States will make a convincing, a compelling enough case to President Trump, who is ultimately going to be the one who makes a decision.
and who ultimately is the one who said he wanted to be the president of no wars. He doesn't want this to drag on for much longer. He has the midterms coming up as well. Much pressure internally for him. Also politically, pressure here in Israel for Benjamin Netanyahu. They have much at stake. Very briefly.
They have much at stake. And again, we cannot finish this broadcast without once again reminding that this all started with the plight of the Iranian people. No one is talking about them. And once this war is over, their fight for freedom against the repressive regime is going to continue. And the question is going to be, have the conditions for their uprising and toppling the regime been laid for them as presented by Prime Minister Netanyahu? If the war ends right now, that is not going to be the case.
It's the fight against the greatest sponsor of terror in the world. The question remains, are they still able to exert terror on countries around the world? Senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Osran, as always, appreciate your updates and your insights. And that is a wrap for now. A reminder of our special broadcast hours, bringing you the latest updates. You can see the live broadcast times on your screen. I'm Benita Levine. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.